And good evening, everyone. ESS, Empire State Sports, proudly presents the Wise Guys Sports Talk Show. Your host tonight, Joey Leone, David Bartlett, and myself, Pete Goslaw, and our very special guest, SUNY Oswego men's head basketball coach, Jason Leone. Welcome to the program, Coach.
Thanks for having me, guys. Been looking forward to this since you asked me.
Awesome. Well, I'll kick it off. For anybody that doesn't know you, Coach, why don't you just give us a little bio of yourself, of where you've been, where you came from, how you got to where you are today, and just so you can educate us.
Well, I grew up. I'm a Syracuse, New York native. Went to Christian Brothers Academy. Grew up in a coaching family. My uncle, John, was a Division I head coach. Actually, at one point was the youngest Division I coach in the country when I was growing up at Lafayette College in Easton, Pennsylvania. They're part of the Patriot League. My dad was involved in coaching youth sports my whole life. And then I have another uncle who has been coaching at Christian Brothers Academy in Syracuse in a volunteer role since I think my sophomore year of high school. So, which was 1991. So, coming from that background, basketball is certainly a part of the way I grew up, and it was a first love for me. And I was fortunate enough to be able to play in college. And when my college playing days were over, I felt like I wanted to dip my toe in the water in the coaching ranks. Actually, I got my start in the North Country as a graduate assistant at SUNY Potsdam. Got my master's there, then slid over and worked for 3 years as the lead assistant at Clarkson University. I worked for a guy by the name of Tobin Anderson, who just recently was named the head basketball coach at Division I Fairleigh Dickinson University in Hackensack, New Jersey. So I've had the opportunity to work for some great people. The first year I worked under Bill Mitchell at SUNY Potsdam, I knew I wanted to be a college coach. The impactfulness of the job is what attracted me to it. Just being able to work with all different types of kids and from all different types of areas. It's really it's been a unique journey that I've been on. 8 years as an assistant coach at Potsdam, Clarkson, at the Division II level at Mercyhurst University. Then got an opportunity to, be my own boss and be the head coach at a small little Division III school outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania, called Keystone College. We had a great 4 years there. And then this job opened up at SUNY Oswego, which allowed me and my wife to move back to the area where I grew up, raise our two young girls. And it's been 11 years. I've coached 10 teams at Oswego, and we've had our best 10-year run in program history, and been to the NCAA 6 times in 10 years, 3 Sweet 16s in the past 6 years, and we're averaging over 20 wins a year. So real proud of the job that my staff and my players have done during the past decade. I was fortunate enough when I got the job, it wasn't a job that was a fixer-upper. The program was it had a really good foundation to it, where they were coming off the first ever NCAA tournament appearance in school history. And I inherited 2 guys that would eventually be All-Americans. So that was a little bit unique. Usually when coach changes happen, a lot of times we think of it as, there was maybe somebody that left that didn't do as good a job. And for me, it was just the opposite. I followed a couple guys that really put the program on solid ground when I took over.
Well, you just didn't stop there, Coach. You obviously have done something right moving forward after you were left the job, because you're recruiting excellent athletes. Can you go on? I know we're going to talk about so much tonight. Let's start off with the recruiting part of it. For people that don't know, what goes into your recruiting, and how far do you go out of your territory to recruit?
Well, being a SUNY institution, we've got to have we have our natural footprint that's in central New York. Most schools, you want to make sure that you identify and do a good job recruiting within an hour to 2 hour radius of your school. So that certainly is something we always try to put a lot of effort into, is knowing people that are within a couple hours of our campus. But, really we've had different teams have taken on different recruiting personality, so to speak, where, there's been times when I've had a lot of kids from New York City, Long Island. There's been times where along the thruway has been, the primary source of our players. So, we have to know everybody that we can in New York State. I think the one thing that's helped us is, when you have success and sustained success, one thing that's changed a little bit is we've delved into kind of the transfer market a little bit. And it's allowed us to get some players that have played at higher levels and they maybe want to come back home near Central New York and play for a winning program. Typically when you win more, you're going to be able to get involved with better players. And that certainly has happened here. The recruiting part of it, the identification of student athletes is certainly a big part of it. I think understanding the way your school operates, which for me, my first couple of recruiting classes was a learning experience for me, being in the SUNY, being at Oswego, figuring out how the admissions process works and the admissible students with regard to our admission standards and what our most popular majors were. So you never figure that out in a short amount of time. Every year I learned something new about our college and about the type of people that we can attract. But there's no substitute for hard work. Recruiting is the lifeline of any program, and you've got to put an extensive amount of work that involves detail and also personality behind, selling your program. So we certainly put a lot of effort into those things, and thus far it's worked out pretty well. But every year the recruiting aspect of the job gets more and more demanding.
How do you sell Oswego in the wintertime?
Well, I grew up in Syracuse, so
right.
For me, it certainly is an experience that I have been through myself, so that becomes a little easier. But I think it's a great question. I get asked that a lot, and I think the number one thing is we don't dodge any of those questions, and I'm honest with players and families when I tell them, if you're going to choose a school based on weather, I can't change where the school is located and what the stories are. I said there's some that are a little bit, embellished. That there was one rumor going around that back in the day people would have to hold ropes when they walked from class to class so they wouldn't fall in the water in Lake Ontario. That's a little embellished, but no. In all seriousness, we certainly are. We just say, look, if the weather is going to be a big part of your decision, we're probably not going to be your choice. So, but that hasn't come up as being a deterrent for any of the people that we've recruited. I think if you grow up in the Northeast, you may see 30-degree weather on Long Island, and it might be 15 degrees here, but you're not outside sunbathing or playing golf. So, to me,
right, I would say that because the majority of your recruits are New York Staters anyway.
Yes,
that's got to be a little bit easier.
Yeah, we were trying to pull kids out of Florida. That might be a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
And Coach, you got to be when it comes to the recruiting part, you got to think for the kid that wants to just get a little bit away. You're in a prime spot because you're within an hour of obviously Syracuse, within an hour of Rochester, two big cities that develop a lot of great talent.
Yes, that's it. That's, I think, one of the better parts of the job, Joey, is our location. We can get to a lot of places in a short amount of time that are very fertile areas for recruiting. The other thing is when we travel within our league, we have the least amount of travel miles. So, which is an attractive thing to be able to tell parents, look at it. It sometimes puts us in a position where our student athletes don't miss as much class. So, that our location is certainly a positive. That and the fact that we have this identity where we're not too big, not too small. So we've got about 8,000 students at the college. So we have some big school resources combined with smaller class sizes, which is very nice. So all those things have been exponentially important in us having the success we've had.
No, I've only had the opportunity. I get all those emails from you for your summer camp every year.
Yeah, we're relentless.
Well, well, you're so relentless. You now go to spam. So
I know. Well, that's a big part of our recruiting, that team camp, and I appreciate all the years you guys came up. It was, that's a big deal. The more kids one of our models in recruiting, Joey, is we try to get as many prospective student athletes on our campus as possible, because I do think it's a beautiful area and the campus is awesome, and we've got a great basketball facility.
well, that's where I was going with it, because the couple times that we went down, just obviously when it's a team camp like that, you got some time in between games, walk around campus. I mean, it's just beautiful, right there on the lake, and that was one of the things I was thinking. I said, yeah, this might be brutal in January and February, but I said this has got to be beautiful when you first get to campus, late August, September, October, in the fall. It's got to be a beautiful time of the year to be living in Oswego.
Awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. And other than the fact that you'll also attest to there's no air conditioning in the gym, that can be a little brutal, but no, the campus is awesome. It shows very well, when there's not snow on the ground. And I think it's a great college town too. Our guys come up, and look, I've been at the school long enough now where, you hear the complaints and then you hear the things people really like. And our guys never complain that there's not enough to do, to your point, we've had guys that, they'll go down and see Syracuse football and basketball games. Obviously our season is pretty demanding, but when we've had our best teams, the community support that we get and the crowds have been pretty impressive. We've hosted a lot of NCAA tournament games and conference tournament games in that gym. And that provides a sense of pride and a sense of community that I don't think can be replicated in a lot of different parts of going to college. And our guys certainly enjoy, being a part of a program that, has won more than any other Division III program in New York State. So they know they have a certain standard that they have to uphold. And that certainly goes into our campus life. And the more success our teams have here, the better that's going to be for attracting people to go to our school, and that generates revenue.
I was just looking at your roster, Coach, for the 21-22 season.
Yeah.
And, you don't have a lot of, I shouldn't say out of towners. You do have some city kids, but a lot of them are the locals. Like you said, you got some from Albany area, Schenectady, Franklin Square, Rochester. So I like that, because because a lot of people, the pickings are kind of slim for some schools up here, and it's nice to see that recruiting is done locally. We talked about that in a show a while ago with Coach Dumont, who was he was at North Country Community College, and he just went from the girls head coach. Now he's the men's head coach, and they have the same concept of trying to bring in the local talent before they try to reach out to others. Of course, sometimes you can't get them all, but it is nice to see you got kids right in the back door from Auburn and stuff like that. I mean, right down the road. So it is nice. I can see how you're not really selling the beach concept. All of us lived up here all our life, so we know what Oswego is like. So, but I just wanted to say that for the record.
You got Rudy.
You
got Rudy's in the Loop. So I mean, what else do you
need?
That
place is awesome. That's it. Absolutely. That place. My wife and I take our girls up there all the time to Rudy's. We try to make it up once or twice a summer, and we enjoy sitting out on the water there. And the little ice cream store that's next to it, Bev's, is Bev. Awesome place too. So those are some local treats, and
so
we've got
the RV park that's across the street, Sunset RV Park. That's in my family. My family.
Is that right? Oh, it's a small world. Yeah, it's great. Great.
Yeah, we have in Oswego.
Yeah, there's a lot of just neat little nooks and crannies up there, and some local some parts of being local up there that are really special, and whether it's going to Canale's Italian restaurant, Bona's, Tully's just opened up. We have a drive-through Tully's that's up there. So for everybody that likes wings and chicken tenders, those are our guys. Were all excited when they opened up this year. And, obviously the press box is awesome. Yeah. Awesome place.
Joe, you've been there a couple times, haven't you, Tully's?
What's that?
Tully's I've gone to Tully's a lot.
It's fun.
I mean, you can get drive-through chicken tenders now, man. That's
it's an awesome deal. They're gonna be happy when team camp's going on next month. So
you might get me to go back down.
I know. No, it's a great deal. It's a great deal down there.
Yeah, well, you have to sell that now. Put that in the email.
I should put that in there. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good
basketball family. Well, I know you know this, but basketball families in Syracuse. I mean, when I used to take my boys down to the Syracuse area, it's either Dinosaur Barbecue or we go to a Tully's, one or the other. So
Well, my best friend from high school owns Tully's, so I always got to give him as much business as I can. Not that he needs my help, but it's an incredible concept. It opened when I was in high school. I think the first one opened in 1990, something like that, and it's just an incredible business concept.
Agreed. So, Coach, talk a little bit about the time. So you were up here at Clarkson and Potsdam State for a
4
while.
Years. Yep, 4 years.
So talk about living in the North Country. I mean, did you were you here year round? Basketball season was over. You took off, went home. What you do?
No,
for that
I was.
3 years
I lived up there. So it was. The way I was indoctrinated into college coaching. The people I was fortunate. The people that really helped me: Jerry Welsh, Bill Mitchell, Tobin Anderson, Chris Downs. When I got into it, one of the things that was a prevailing piece of advice that I always got was you've got to set yourself apart. And it's a really hard profession to advance in. And I wanted to have my own team at some point. And, to do that, I wanted to have a personality and a presence in the area. I wanted to get to know as many people as I could. And, I didn't want to be a part-time resident. So I lived up there, and, it was funny. I graduated from the University of Rochester, and probably drove my parents crazy getting into college coaching after paying that tuition there. But all my friends, most of them went to bigger cities to get into something financial, or went to law school or medical school. And I wanted to be a coach. So I moved up and was, fortunate enough to meet a lot of great people up there. And there wasn't a lot to do all the time, which was good for me because I threw myself into my work, and we had a great year. The year I worked for Bill Mitchell at Potsdam, and then the 3 years at Clarkson, we set some program records for, wins and program and postseason appearances and things like that. And I really learned how to recruit. That was the big thing that I learned how to do, because one of the challenges about living in the North Country was getting recruits to get up there and visit. We had a great product both at Potsdam and Clarkson, but getting people there to see it was one of the bigger challenges. So I knew if I could do a good job and get good players and impact the programs there, that would probably teach me a lot of really good lessons in coaching that I think I could take with me the rest of my career. And there's no question the 4 years I spent up there were incredibly impactful and useful towards the success that my teams have had now.
I wish I want this to come out right, but I wish that Clarkson could return to some form of dominance again in D3 basketball up here, because it really does. They replaced the bleachers since you left. I mean, they got new bleachers, but other than that, you walk into their gymnasium, and I mean, all due respect, my gymnasium at St. Lawrence Central is nicer than what they have to offer, and it's just hard to believe that Clarkson hasn't kind of stepped up. St. Lawrence redid their gymnasium, looks beautiful. Clarkson just I just wish that they would do a little bit more. And I don't know. I'm just an outsider looking in.
Yeah.
But there's not that draw to get me to go to a Clarkson game the way I would run over to SUNY Potsdam and Maxey or something like that. Did you notice that or go through that during your time there? I mean, obviously a little more competitive at that time, but did you notice any of those things?
Yeah. So it was a challenge. I'll tell you, the biggest challenge was because it was frustrating, right? So we had the best team in school history at the time. We had won 19 games, and we started to play some really meaningful games down the stretch of our season, and we just couldn't get people to come over to the games. I think, at that point in time, and I'm guessing it's not any different now, hockey was such a big draw there. And the team was really good when I was coaching up there in the late 90s, early 2000s. And, it just couldn't generate the excitement that we ever wanted to, even with the wins. And that was a little discouraging. I know the year after I left Clarkson to go to Mercyhurst as an assistant, the team won the regular season, tied for the regular season championship. And they had a big weekend at home, the last weekend, where they had to win 2 and they could host the tournament. And there weren't great crowds there, and I'm sure if there was an answer to that, they would have it by now. But I just think with hockey being such a big part of the fiber in the North Country, especially at Clarkson, they have such great tradition. It's probably got to be a little bit challenging that the basketball team plays in the same season as hockey. That's got to be part of it,
Right.
The second thing is I think it's such a great school and it's so demanding. I think there's, genuine, I think kids are doing their schoolwork and they got other things going on. And I think that all those little things, I mean, I think the school we had when I was there, what was it, 3,000, 4,000 students, if that, there's not a ton of people there to draw from, to get them to go to the games. That was one of the bigger challenges. Maybe the facility had something to do with it. I don't know, but Clarkson certainly wasn't an easy job.
Can you describe, so I want to get back to your job, but can you describe though, I mean, if that was where you started to learn the recruiting process, how different was it trying to recruit to a school like Clarkson, versus a SUNYAC school, because we're talking like different kind of students to these two places.
Yeah, so it was exponentially different. So the first thing with Clarkson is one of the challenges there at that time, the financial aid was not very good. So it wasn't very good. So we had to, in order to yield a certain number of kids in a recruiting class, we had to recruit so many more kids than what I do here, So our list many years would start with 300 student athletes on the list. And we just had to get to know as many people as we could. And we had to evaluate properly. We weren't a school that was going to get into a ton of recruiting battles with other people. So we had to try the best we could to look under rocks for kids. And that's what we did. Eventually when we got it going, we had a couple of transfers. We had a kid from DC, a kid from Chicago. We really, and that was before at our level, national recruiting was really popular. I think there's more of it that goes on now. But when we really had our best recruiting years, we recruited from all over the country, and so that was something that we did. Now with SUNY recruiting, to your point, it's different, not necessarily just with the academic standards, because I'm at Oswego and we've got guys on our team that would have the grades and the SATs to go to a school like where I went, U of R, but they just can't afford it. That's the big thing that's changed from when I first started coaching to now, is that gap between public and private school education in terms of cost is bigger. So when I was coaching at Potsdam, I think it cost $9,500 a year to go to school there, billable cost, tuition, room, board, and fees. And Clarkson, I think, was 20 something at that point. Okay, so a private school could get their cost down to state school cost at that point in time. Now it's, there's a bigger gap there. So, but with SUNY schools, most of the time kids are choosing those schools because of the cost factor. So we're going to be able to yield at a place like Oswego State or Potsdam a little bit more, more kids per how many we recruit than a school like Clarkson can. So you say it's a little bit less work, but the thing I like about it is I can recruit less guys and really get to know everybody I'm recruiting. At Clarkson, it felt almost like a little bit more like I was recruiting for an admissions office where, they're really at times lacked a little bit of personal attention. But, it was a point in time when I wasn't married, my boss wasn't married. So I'm telling you, we worked 70, 80-hour weeks. It was that demanding, in terms of trying to get kids that, and it's not because we didn't have a good product. Clarkson's a wonderful school and kids get great jobs out of there. But, we've got that because of the financial aid process, we had to recruit a ton of kids.
During the COVID, Coach, how did that all get up? That must have affected you recruiting wise and everything also during the pandemic.
Well, I know you're probably trying to go there. I don't mean to make anybody feel bad like this, but we actually, believe it or not, benefited from COVID. We ended up getting 4 kids during the summer last year, 4 recruits during the summer to commit to us and 3 of them would have probably gotten scholarships if it wasn't for COVID. So what happened was we still were at a point in time last summer where a lot of schools were not permitting visitors on campus. We had our starting point guard who was a freshman this year. He hit this Division II school he was going to attend. They decided not to fund athletics for 2 years. So he was a young man with a really high GPA and was a great kid. And he was just out there in July and he was scrambling and we were able to take him. We would have probably never gotten him if COVID didn't happen. Same story with a couple of other kids. They just couldn't go visit some of these schools. So they never knew how good these prospective student athletes were. And we ended up getting them, late. And it really helped us this season where we had our best year in school history. And, you guys know this from watching sports. Like it was a thing where we ended up having like just a really, really good group that not only meshed well together, but we were exceptionally talented. And we had just an incredible year that you don't see very often in the SUNY. So we won games by over 20 points per game on average. And it's really hard to do that in any league, let alone the SUNY.
So we've had other coaches on the show and we talked about the pandemic because we started doing this during the pandemic. Yep. So I'm going to ask you the same thing. I know you got 4 good kids there during that pandemic, but did it affect you to the point of recruiting that you couldn't do a lot to face, that you had to do most of it over the computer and like Zoom calls or anything or stuff like that? Or
yeah, we did all that stuff. So you just had to be more resourceful. I just like I told my players, we're not going to make excuses and we're going to figure this thing out and do the best job we can. I would go and I'd meet with families at Starbucks and sit outside and, and we would go, we created ways that were within the rules for us to recruit and do the best job possible. What I wasn't going to do, because this is what I begged of our guys during the pandemic, because we weren't going to make excuses and we weren't going to, quit on things. We were going to do the best job we could within the rules to be prepared. So when things got back up and running again, as coaches, we put our team in the best position to be successful. And as players, we wanted our guys to stay in the best possible shape they could so we could get back to some sort of normalcy when time was right. But yeah, certainly coming up with different ways to talk to kids, sell kids on our program and talk to them about why they should attend Oswego State. We had to come up with different ways of doing that. So Zoom calls were one of those ways. I just mentioned driving places and meeting with people at neutral sites, things that were within the rules. We did that. And then little by little, when things started opening up again, then we started getting out there and doing the things we were doing before the pandemic.
So, Coach, talk a little bit about your Sweet 16 run for this season. And I mean, we know you won the SUNY and obviously that's a chore in itself. But talk about winning those first two playoff games, in the NCAA tournament to get you into the Sweet 16. Talk a little bit about that trip and that journey.
Well, it was great. I appreciate you asking that, Joey. It was awesome. And having coached in the tournament, 6 times, it never gets old. It's a really special thing. And one of the things I try to convey to our recruits is whether you so difficult to make it and so difficult to get to that point in your season where you're playing and so many other people are not. I learned something about coaching tournament every time we make it. 27 games, but if we have a type of year like we had, we were 25-2 and we won the SUNY. Typically, we're used to hosting some games. So it was a little bit of disappointment that we didn't get a chance to host. Our league, in terms of how many teams were regionally ranked this year, was a little bit down, and that hurt our resume. It was we regrouped quickly. We went down to Swarthmore College, and we beat 2 really good teams down there. And everybody in the Division III tournament's good when you make it because there's not very many at-large bids. So, over 80% of the tournament are teams that had to win their league just to get in there. And so you see a lot of really impressive records when you get to the tournament. So I always tell people there's not a lot of those games where, Duke plays Prairie View A&M or somebody like that, big conference, small conference. Everybody in this tournament can play. There might be 1 or 2 of those types of games, but by and large, everybody, if you get in, you've had to really earn your stripes to get in the tournament. So we went down and played a school called Hood College from down in Maryland. They played a very unique style. It was almost a fast break in the half court. They shot 60% of their shots from 3. So they were playing the analytic game, and they came out on fire. Luckily for us, we were an extremely athletic team that was able to wear them down on the boards, and and we were able to generate enough offense against their zone, where we ended up generating, after being down, I think 9 or 10 in the first half, we ended up being up 16 at one point in the second half and kind of held on and won by 8 or 9 points in that first game. And then we played Keene State, who was a very good program, kind of like us. They've been in a lot of NCAA tournaments here the last decade. We played probably our best game of the year, beat them by 21 on a neutral court. And that allowed us to advance to the Sweet 16. And we played Marietta College on their home floor. They were the second best team in the country. And after watching a lot of the NCAA tournament this year, I would agree with that ranking. There wasn't a lot of teams that were better than us. I watched the Final Four this year, and 2 of the teams out of the 4, I felt like we were just as good, if not better than. So this was our best team that I've had here. Not to diminish what some of my other teams have accomplished, but we were so athletic and so undersized in a good way. We were able to do a lot of things defensively and offensively that I think were tricky for our opponents. And we were able to play faster than we've ever played before. I've always played with a traditional center inside all my other 9 teams. This team was the first team that was really able to, whoever got the ball was able to bring it on offense. That allowed us to generate a lot of easy baskets, and we were an exceptional offensive rebounding team. So this was a really fun team to coach, because I found myself as a coach being able to do a lot of different things that normally were outside of our personality in past teams that I've coached.
Well, so Coach, knowing that, what are we looking at for this season then?
Well, it's going to be interesting, right? So we returned 6 of our top 8 scorers. So on a team that won 27 games and finished ranked 11th in the country. So with that comes expectations. One of the things I challenged our guys with is every year that we've won our conference, it seems like that next off season we fall victim to rat poison, as Nick Saban would call it, of complacency, right? So this spring, there were some areas that I thought we really achieved at a high level in. I thought we had guys that kind of got after it in the gym and in the weight room. So that was good, but we had some guys academically that didn't do as well as we would like. So there's a couple guys that got to kind of get some things cleaned up in summer school. And then we've got, we've got to add a couple pieces. So we lost two very physical, undersized forwards. Realistically, with the team we have coming back, if we want to take another step and maybe have a chance to make a run at the Final Four, a freshman at 18 years old is probably not going to be able to help us with the group we have coming back. So we're in the market to hopefully bring in a couple of higher level transfers over the summer here. We've got a couple leads on some kids, but nothing that's substantial yet. But the longer I do this, you guys probably follow a little bit, with the transfer portal and things like that. The portal hasn't really been meaningful to us at all at our level, but recruiting transfers has been a meaningful part of our success. So it's just going to take some time, and it requires some patience and some good fortune. But I feel like given the team we have coming back with the experience we had this year, playing in that environment in front of 1,200 people in a packed gym in the Sweet 16, as a staff, we owe it to our guys to kind of, maybe roll the dice a little bit and take the right couple guys over the summer that have some college experience. That'll give us the best chance physically to maybe take another step forward if we're fortunate enough to make the tournament.
Well, Coach, I know especially the last couple of years, but I love it when it gets to be tournament time for D3, because I just love, I love diving into, and we have a lot of connections on people that have been on our show here. Just this past season, we now can count you, and we would count any SUNYAC school. We're huge SUNYAC fans. But you guys were in. A player for me is the student assistant coach for Nazareth. They were in. Declan Porter, I don't know if that name rings a bell to you, but he was a big time player up here in Canton, New York. He was on the Williams team. They got in. So it was just, I love being able to track. It seems like there's always a connection. You're going to know somebody somewhere on one of these. It's a little different than D1 where, but in D3 level, it's just, it's more of a hometown feeling, because you're going to have, I guarantee you'll have some sort of connection with somebody on a certain team, especially if you're a high school coach or involved in high school athletics like I am. Cause I'm at a school where chances are I'm going to be more familiar with D3 athletes than D1. So I love everything about D3 basketball.
Yeah, it's great. It's there's a perfect combination of humility but then talent, and to know it is to love it. If you follow it or have been a part of it, either as a player or a coach, it's a very unique experience at our level, because you genuinely figure out a lot about leadership qualities of individuals, and you figure out people who are self-starters or really love to play. Because I think, from having coached at the scholarship level for 4 years and having played Division I basketball for 2 years, sometimes there's a little bit more of a sense of, I'm only playing because of the scholarship, or only playing because of this level. At our level, there truly, truly is a sense of pride. And it's a very unique experience, because you're combining with this great academic experience the opportunity to continue playing your sport. And that's not always the case at other levels. In other words, people are playing because they maybe have aspirations to play professionally, or they're not as in tune with the academic side of things because basketball takes up so much of their time. Our players, generally speaking, are truly students first, and they want to continue playing. So the athletic piece of it is an added bonus. And then the relationships that you build on campus, our guys are not separate from the rest of the student body. You know, they have friends that play other sports. They have friends that maybe aren't athletes that come and support our teams. So they really are ingratiated into the campus community, which sometimes in Division I, Division II, the athletes are kind of separated from the rest of the student body, you know, because their life is so demanding within their sport.
Well, Coach, again, you're with three guys that grew up in near Potsdam in the heyday of the '80s with SUNY Potsdam, Jerry Welch.
Yep.
So you know, you're talking to three guys that love SUNYAC basketball. We just had on, and I just wrote these names down, not trying to name drop on your show, but you mentioned Bill Mitchell. He's been on our show. Jerry, Coach Welch was on our show. The late Coach Conowitz was on our show. Tom Curl has been on our show. Coach Bechtel, Coach Spann.
Oh wow!
And just last week we had on the SUNYAC MVP Austin Grunder. So we're big fans of SUNYAC basketball. So just letting you know. You know, I started thinking. I said, "Geez, Jason Leone sends me emails all the time. I'm going to send him one and see if he'll come on." So
I got right back to you, right? I got right back to you.
You did. Right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
You always do. Well, even when I was going down to your team camp, you'd reply to me in a heartbeat if I said we were coming. So
that's the way I was brought up. So I was just like, if somebody gets a hold of you, try to get back to them within 24 hours, you know? So,
well, geez, then if you want an AD job up here in Section 10, I'd love to have you around, because I got fellow ADs that say, "Oh, I'll get in touch with you next week." No, I didn't know. This is a 24/7 job. I want an answer now.
Well, that's a who's who of the SUNYAC right there. I'm humbled to be a part of that group. Those are some really close friends of mine over the years. Every one of those guys, you know, I know closely. Tom Spanbauer and I talk almost every day on the phone. He's been a great friend since I've gotten in the league. And John Conowitz recruited me when I was a student athlete at CBA when he was the coach at Cortland. And you know, obviously Austin Grunder, both Cortland and us recruited him, and I'll be happy when his eligibility's up. I've been sick of seeing him kick our ass for 3 years. So, but those are all great guys. You know, Jimmy Bechtel, the job he's done up at Potsdam has been phenomenal in a short period of time. And obviously Tom Curl, you know, is a legend. He set the standard when I first got in the league. He was the standard, and, you know, the way his teams played at Plattsburgh were just incredible. And we had to get, you know, more athletic real quick. You know, when I first got the job, and his program was a standard.
Agree. He had a great run and a stretch for a while. That's for sure. Plattsburgh has obviously changed greatly since his departure.
Yes.
And we're leaving a name out too. We have your fellow coach Pinkerton's been on as well.
Has he? Oh, yeah. Sean and I are buddies. Yeah, he's great. He's been great, and really, you guys know this, when you're, you know, men's and women's basketball is a unique thing where our two sports are the only two sports that travel together in college athletics and are kind of joined at the hip. So working with somebody that you really like, who's your counterpart in your sport, that doesn't always happen. And I'm thankful to be working with Sean.
Well, and I had the pleasure of working with him because he's as you know, you talk, all these coaches have their you know, their pathway to where they got to. I mean, he coached at St. Louis Central, where I am, for a couple of years. So I was with him.
You know that? Oh, I never knew that. That's interesting. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, Coach, this flew by, and it was awesome. Again, I love talking SUNYAC basketball. I think it's great. I think it's one of the best divisions in all of basketball at any level. I just think, you know, and we've been lucky. I've been really lucky the last couple of years. My son was a manager for Coach Spann at SUNY Cortland, so that's my connection to. That's my connection. He's buddies with Austin, and that's how we got Austin on the show.
That's awesome.
But to be able to watch him play, and then to see all the teams in the SUNYAC, I just love SUNYAC basketball. Pete and Dave do as well, and the legends of the. You know, again, we grew up in the '80s when Jerry Welch was winning national championships. So, we have deep admiration and respect for the conference that you're coaching in, and the dominance that you have been showing in that conference for the last few years now.
I appreciate that. This is awesome. Anytime that any type of media publication or podcast or show like you guys are doing gives attention to Division III, that's such a positive for us, and the fact that you guys, from a historical perspective, have not only been around, but you love the SUNY, as you say, it truly is a great conference. And our conference, not to to put down any other sports, but our conference was founded on it as a basketball conference, and one of the cool things that I really admire about our league is I think we're like one of one or two leagues in the country that have had 5 different schools out of 10 win the conference within the last 11 years. And not everybody can say that, because a lot of times at our level, you have a lot of haves and have-nots with regard to resources and financial aid, which is a big part of winning. And you see kind of leagues where the same 2 or 3 schools seem to be at the top all the time. And our league is, we've had a good run, but our league has had a ton of parity over the years. And, you just look at now, I looked the other day, there's only 2 schools in the league that haven't won a playoff game since 2016. That's incredible, and that's a testament to the coaches and the schools in our league and the parity of the league, which I think only makes the league stronger, So I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me. And it's always great this time of year where things slow down a little bit, be able to get on and talk basketball with somebody.
We love it.
Yeah. We're sick. We're sick because we want to do this 365, and it probably just talking about it probably gets the juices flowing for you to get motivated to get going.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I love it. I miss my time up in the North Country. I had all my spots I go to up there to eat. So I'm Italian, so Sergi's was a mainstay for me, and I go there, and Rick Carlisle's father had a really nice restaurant over in Canton I used to go to all the time. And the St. Lawrence Inn, when that was still open over by St. Lawrence campus, I used to go over there and have an adult beverage or two with some buddies and watch games over there. And have a lot of good memories up there, so.
Well, Coach, I know I can speak for the other two. We're so happy you came on our show. It flew right by. I mean, I was just checking the clock. It's like 50 minutes, and we flew right by just like that. It seems like we could talk more, and hopefully you'll come back on and talk to us.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's get you guys over to one of our games when we're up playing Potsdam or Plattsburgh. If it works out in your schedule, maybe we can do a live show or something.
Hell yeah.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right, Coach. Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks for all your time, guys. Best of luck this summer, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.
All right, good luck to you too. That's going to be it tonight on the ESS, Empire State Sports, and the Wise Guys Sports Talk Show. For Joey, Dave, and myself, Pete Goslaw, and our very special guest, Jason Leone. Good night, everybody, and stay safe.